not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. This is me. stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come, and I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. This is brave, this is bruised, this is who I'm meant to be. This is me. a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come, and I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me.
Hello, I want to welcome all of you to our 4th annual storytelling event, True Stories and True Selves. We're super excited to have everybody here. Woo! Yay! We have 4 stories and 5 storytellers tonight, and when I say that these are powerful stories, I'm not exaggerating. I feel like we get so much better at this every time we do it, and these tonight are going to blow you away. Snaps, for sure, for sure. If you know me at all, I'm super passionate about storytelling. This is really where the magic happens. This is where we change hearts and minds. Stories are where you kind of shed all of your armor and you can come together and adopt some new ideologies that are creating safe spaces for everybody. So I love this event. Thank you all for being here. I do want to quickly thank Des Moines for the last 24 days for showing up. Holy cow. And yes, like we're doing it. And as we wind down this next week, please come see us and come to an event. And thank you for your support. We're so grateful. I'm going to hand off to Gen C and enjoy tonight.
Hello, Des Moines and Teehees. My name is Jen Crothers. I am the president of Capital City Pride. Thank you for being here tonight and both live. Again, this is one of our favorite events. It's only the fourth time we've ever done it. I think the power in storytelling is it's hard to wrap in words. It makes us relatable. It breaks us down to what we are at the core, which is all human. And I think at the end of the day, it inspires one another and leaves us to a point where we realize we're not so alone in who we are and what our experiences are through as we navigate this world. Before we kind of get into all of it, though, I do have to give some like huge gratitude and shout outs to our presenting sponsor, EMC. And then our partnering sponsor, Athene. And they do deserve a round of applause. Most people don't realize that we are a 100% volunteer working board that charges almost nothing for everything we do, which means about 100% with little to no overhead basically goes right back in the community. And the only way we can make that accessible, which is so important with the marginalized community, is through partnerships like these. So again, can we get another big round of applause for EMC and Athene? And without further ado, I'm actually going to allow Lonnie Daphne to come up from EMC and share a couple of words as our presenting sponsor.
Good evening. Man, that is live. So Lonnie Daphne, I am the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at EMC, and we are absolutely proud to be tonight's presenting sponsor for this event. Glad to show up in the diverse communities that definitely count on us. Over 110 years, obviously, as a company, we rely, obviously, on the communities that we work and live in, and so super proud to support. We, too, are navigating this journey, and so as we think about what's going to happen tonight, I want to express gratitude for our storytellers tonight. Your stories are important. Your stories are courageous, and your voices are heard. And I want to know that EMC, definitely you can count on us to be a part of your community as well. So thank you and enjoy this evening.
Thank you, Lonnie. And I have to say, I love it. It's kind of the rainbow vibe you're giving off with your attire there. Coming ready, ready for the party. But without further ado, I'm sure you're like, get off the stage, Crothers. You like to talk too much all the time. I've never met a mic I don't like. It's true. I'm a COA. I'm a center of attention. But I do have to give a big shout out to the person that's coming behind me. His name is Jordan Duesenberg. He's been with us 2 times in a row now coaching our storytellers. Once a storyteller himself, he has blessed us with his amazing talent and time to make this happen and coach our folks. So give a big warm welcome to Jordan Duesenberg.
So actually, it's been 3 times, not that I'm counting. I've spoken twice and been a coach before, but that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there. So I'm Jordan Duesenberg. It's been my honor to be the coach for this round of Capital City Pride Storytellers event. Anybody that knows me knows that this is my absolute favorite event that Capital City Pride throws. I think it's so important that we get the opportunity, those of us in the LGBTQ plus community and allies, to share our stories, to help connect with people on a deep level, and hopefully help some people too that need to identify with some people, and hopefully you get that out of tonight. This actual round has been particularly challenging. We've had some curveballs that were thrown at us, and typically our speakers get about 3 months to prepare for their stories, and our speakers had a month. So that's pretty crazy. And what that entails is they not only have to write their story, but meet with the coach, receive feedback, memorize their stories, and then most importantly, build up the courage to get up here and share deeply personal stories. So I'm so impressed. It's been such a privilege to work with each and every one of the speakers, and all of them knew exactly what they wanted to say from the get-go. So you're seeing some very talented individuals up here tonight. So I'm also like Jen, I love attention, so I'll try to get off stage ASAP. So without further ado, I will introduce our next speaker, who is going to share a story about finding love in the face of adversity. Please help me welcome Giovanni Pahena.
I think that's as high as it goes. June 30th, 2020. Des Moines BLM organizes a Black Queer March and a surprise after-party. For the march, I've planned my outfit to look as celestial as possible, not of this earth. I choose a white dress, a white shawl, Doc Martens. I have to find more masculine clothing to wear to come and go from my house. There's somebody that's been at the protests from my past that I wanted to reconnect with, but she hasn't recognized or remembered me just yet, and I haven't found the right time. She recognizes me almost immediately in my angelic garb. We march from the Blazing Saddle, which had been raided by the police just 29 days before, to the garden, chanting the names of the Black queer people we have lost along the way. I march, I chant, every now and then. Believe it or not, I don't actually like being the center of attention. I especially don't like taking up more space than necessary. We arrive at the garden's parking lot, and there are speakers and a DJ and food. A party. Some people have gotten some drinks. My reconnected and new friends and I get some ourselves. We dance, we drink, we chat, we experience joy. The end of the night comes, and I have to switch outfits, hide this one, make my way home. July 1st, 2020. I wake up around noon, a little hungover. I get up, make myself a snack, drink a lot of water, check in with my usual protest buddy. I don't get a response. They're probably still sleeping. Nobody has had a decent sleep schedule since March. I make my way to the Capitol to join in the protest for voting rights. It's around 1:15, and it's a mess already. I have to turn back a little. I wish I could tell you all that I had a really nice coming out, a very supportive family, and friends that helped me grow to be my best self. I wish I could tell myself that. I was raised Catholic by Mexican immigrants, and America has not been kind to them. And neither had the small town in Mexico that they came from. I was raised not expressing myself. I was raised to be seen and not heard, and even then. I was raised to perpetuate the cycles of those around me. I learned the cycles from my mother, who learned it from her mother, who maybe learned it from her mother or an older sister, or maybe was forced to learn it in America. That's the cycle of the cycles that people get stuck in, learn from parents and people and systems around them. Not all bad, though. To this day, I still have an extremely delicate touch from having played with my grandmother's penguin figurines, always making sure to put them in their respective dust circle so she never found out. Okay, I've given some context. Let's go back. I'm walking up the steps of the state capitol, and I can already see that the DMPD and state troopers are arresting somebody and have her bent over the hood of a car, and there's a crowd of people following and recording. They march her through the main entrance of the capitol, right through the protesters. They know what they're doing. They take her and some other people into a room. Somebody tries to break in to help their friend. They immediately get thrown to the ground. In the scuffle, I see this brown shirt's arms on somebody who's already on the ground. I've seen this brown shirt before, but not like this. His arms beat red, veins pulsating. He gets up and he looks at me, and I tell him to get back in the loudest, butchest voice I can muster. I'm a tenor, but I'm also 6'4", so I have a little bit of butch in me. He tells me to get back. Even louder, I point away from the crowd and say, "Get back!" Tail between his legs, tears forming in his eyes. He does. There's a standoff inside. After a while, they take people out of that room. The protesters follow. Once we get outside, it's almost immediate chaos. There are groups and clumps of people all around me. I try my very best, awkwardly and hesitantly, I might add, to help. All of a sudden, I feel 2 punches at my lower back. I turn around, and there's a state trooper and a DMPD officer, one with a baton at his ready. It's a blur, but at some point, a brown shirt tries to throat punch me and knocks my glasses off my face. I walk with the crowd to the paddy wagon as they're arresting people. There's a line of brown shirts. I see Mr. Scrawny Arms. I look him dead in the eye and say, "Your dad doesn't love you, the governor doesn't love you, the president doesn't love you." Next thing I know, there is a fleet of DMPD cars. I'm almost hit by one. State trooper tells me to watch where I'm going. I tell him to tell his friends to learn to drive better. No response, but I can see in his eyes he knows I'm a little right. I walk back to the main crowd. I'm screaming, I'm shouting, calling them milksops and fascists and cowards and class traitors and everything I can think of that's not a curse but will still piss them off. Somebody's arrested mere feet from me. An officer gets into my face. He shoves me. He's screaming at me. He shoves me again. I don't move. There's a line of police officers. They keep marching forward, pushing everybody back. I feel somebody grab my arm. I'm covered in sweat, so I slip right out. But that doesn't stop them. More people grabbing my arm and more people grabbing my arm, and then they have to pepper spray me. I fall to the ground. I feel a knee on my back, horrifyingly close to my neck. I'm brought to my feet, dragged to the paddy wagon, patted down, groped, and shoved inside. The person I'd seen arrested earlier is sitting there already. Somebody else is brought in not far after. He was also pepper sprayed. We were the only 2 that day. A third person is brought in, and she is distraught. We do our best to calm her down, to let her know that things are going to be fine, that she's not alone. We exchange names and pleasantries. My pepper spray partner wipes his eyes on my shoulders, and I do the same on his. The last person to be brought in takes off her headscarf and does her best to wipe the pepper spray out of my eyes. More people are brought into the paddy wagon, and eventually we're taken to PCJ. As we're driving and pulling up, I can hear a crowd of people outside. I feel something I've never felt before, and I can't exactly put a name to it. We're processed. We're brought inside. We're fed. As my pepper spray-filled snot drips into my mouth and onto this flavorless meal, I'm just a little glad that it happened. And extremely slowly released. I'm one of the first. I'm offered a shower. I deny. Just like Jackie Kennedy, I want them to see what they've done. As I'm putting on my docs again, somebody else is released. She comes up to me and says, "I didn't get to tell you yesterday, but you looked beautiful. Your dress was amazing." We walk out together. There's a crowd of people cheering for us. She runs to people that she knows. I walk slowly, fist in the air. One of the first people to come up to me is the friend that I reconnected with the night before. It's taken some time, and I'm still processing a lot of things, but I finally realized what the feeling was that I felt while we were in the paddy wagon as I walked towards the cheering crowd. Love. In my life, in the cycles that I perpetuated, love had conditions. And that's why they kept going, because we were taught that if we didn't perpetuate the cycles, we wouldn't get what we were told was love. And even then, we still had to beg and plead. And yet, here were, and still are, complete strangers, extremely willing to share their love with me, no questions asked. It was radical. It was an action. Radical love is an action. Radical love is a fist in the air, feet marching on the ground, chanting and shouting the names of those lost, taken, and not forgotten. It's a verse of We Shall Overcome. It's handcuffed hands wiping pepper spray out of your eyes. It's a brick dropped from the top of a light pole. It's somebody shouting, "What are you going to do?" as they're being dragged into a paddy wagon. It's a kick line. Radical love is liberating. Thank you.
The first thing Giovanni told me before we even met was that they had a theater background. And so, we had Zoom calls, but seeing Giovanni on stage is such a joy. It's such a great story. So thank you for that. Our next speaker, I told you we had a few curveballs. And we actually have our next speaker. He filled in 3 days before. So 3 days with no coaching. And it's great. So our next story is about coming to terms with one's past, resilience, and creating a brighter present and future. Please help me welcome our next speaker, Scott Bruxford.
They really weren't lying when they said 3 days, so I'm using a cheat sheet, but it's the best I could do out here. So this is my first Pride event that I've ever attended, and it's kind of ironic and a little bit humbling that I'm even the one to be speaking. I'm humbled before each of you. I came out as bisexual on National Coming Out Day this past year, and to be honest, I'm still trying to figure out my identity as it pertains to my sexuality. Currently, I'm sorting through my belief that I'm non-binary, but until I learn more about that, I'll just say I'm a unicorn. This journey is new for me, and I'm growing every day. When I think of pride, I think about how I use pride in a negative way, a way that made it all about myself, a way that left me wanting to kill myself back in September. My selfish pride resulted in me losing everything. Well, nearly everything. I was left with only my last thread of a life that I was hanging on to. I've now referred to myself 22 times. I hope that you can hear me when I speak, as I'll only refer to myself throughout, not out of pride, but out of humbleness and vulnerability. I hope that from my own story that we can all gain some perspective. I try my best not to tell people what they do wrong, rather I use my own examples of being a disgusting person throughout my life to provide raw and authentic examples of what not to do. Here's an example of how I was so prideful in myself that I gained everything that I could have ever wanted, just to have it all come crumbling down. I grew up on a farm in Mitchellville, Iowa. I grew up in a home where we worked hard, prayed before meals, and grew the food that we ate. When I was 8 years old, I told my mom that I wanted to be a pastor in the NBA so that I could preach to gross men that would be missing church on Sundays. I also made my mom promise that she would never let me quit the game of basketball. I wanted to buy her a house. Growing up in a Christian home, I wanted to glorify God on television through my talents as an athlete. To be honest, I wanted to get out of Mitchellville. In 6th grade, I was on the C team for the All-Iowa Attack basketball program. If you don't care about sports, that's cool. I really don't either, but that means that there was an A team with the best players, a B team with the next best players, and then a C team would be in the rest of the cast-offs. There were at least 10 people on each team. My broke-ass farm family paid more money than they had at the time, racked up credit card debt just to let me play the game that I wanted to. I wanted a free education, so I literally begged my parents to let me play. From a young age, I knew that if I had a chance to earn a free education through basketball, that I could change my life. In 8th grade, I was invited to the Junior All-American Camp in Washington, D.C. I can thank practicing 6 hours a day for that growth. After that camp, I was ranked on a list that included me as a top 20 player in the country. I had pride in myself as an athlete. It was the only place where I ever felt comfortable. I was a toothpick, skinny, bald kid with bushy eyebrows and braces. I like doing teddy bear concerts to NSYNC CDs in my room. I like playing with Barbies. I didn't know at the time that I was questioning my sexuality. I just thought that I was doing things that I like to do. But I stopped playing with Barbies, and my professional singing career to teddy bears came to an abrupt halt when people started making fun of me for it. So I forced myself to only do things that I wouldn't be called a faggot for doing. I just wanted to fit in, and I wanted to be cool. So when cool athletes hung out with me on the court, I felt cool. I felt important. I felt valued. But I felt different. While I felt different, I finally belonged. The shift in my comfortability as an athlete occurred when I got my first tattoo as a 15-year-old. Pops, I know you remember this. I bet my dad that I would get in the top 20 list after this camp, and if I did, I got a tattoo. I think you pissed Mom off with that one. My dad's a man of his word, and he paid up. I went to Creative Images in Des Moines, got a cross on my left forearm that said Philippians 1:6. And I believe that God who began the good work in you will continue that work until Jesus returns. It's what I wanted people to see when I played in the NBA so that they could know what I was about. Kind of silly for a kid to think that external images make you who you are, but emotional intelligence was not on my radar at that point in time. There were two key issues with that tattoo. It was spelled wrong. Yep. And there was a semicolon instead of a colon. Great Christian behavior. As a boy who wouldn't be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder for another 11 years, I didn't know how to respond to such a traumatic moment as having this permanent ink on my body. I told myself how dumb I was for not checking the spelling first, how stupid I looked. I was so terrified of ending up on World Star hip-hop videos for being the no regrets kid from We're the Millers. I told myself that day that I never wanted to be famous for basketball. I stopped playing hard in front of coaches. I was embarrassed. My pride as an athlete was obliterated by a few letters and a semicolon. My pride was reduced to abundant shaming of myself for the next 11 years. But why? I had no identity. I couldn't tell anyone who Scott was. I would say things like, I'm a basketball player, and then I wouldn't have any idea what to say next. So when my entire worth as a person was self-placed into the game of basketball, and when the only area of comfort in my life was now affected by a messed up tattoo, I had zero confidence in myself as a person. With zero identity and zero confidence, I began to seek validation as a person through relationships. I became attached to people that would tell me how hot I was or how nice I was or how good of a hooper I was. These were all new things for me when I started dating at 16. I wouldn't go more than a month of being single for the next 11 years. I was neglected as a child. I was experiencing major mommy and daddy issues, and I attempted to replace it with a girlfriend. As an athlete, I learned quickly that I shouldn't tell the other hoopers that I liked NSYNC, or that I wanted to paint my nails, or that I wanted to wear short shorts. And that was hard to suppress, especially with a bunch of hot, sweaty, muscled-up boys getting all physical with me on the court. I'll keep it appropriate, won't bore you with the details of what a honey hole of basketball locker room was. I didn't know what I was sexually at the time other than sex with girls didn't feel right, and the one dude I kissed in high school also didn't feel right. To be honest, I've never enjoyed a sexual experience that I've ever had. I just unpacked that a few weeks ago in my own self-discovery. I couldn't say no to people. I would never play the victim because I chose to put myself in situation after situation in my codependency that left me giving up my body, not feeling anything, and then shaming myself for letting another person have that energy from me sexually. Of course, there were times when I initiated sexual experiences. I was trying to cover up my pain and was searching for physical touch that felt normal. I was just so confused on what was real and what wasn't. I became increasingly more depressed throughout college from my ex having an abortion when I was 18, for dropping out of a Division I school in New York after 3 days, from the pain I felt from playing a year on a torn meniscus because I needed to get a scholarship back after I got arrested. Oh, and from getting arrested and shamed by the media for being a dumb, spoiled white kid who got in trouble. I just wanted someone to validate that a man could also experience abuse. I was abused as an athlete. I was raped 3 times in college. This is the first time I've ever publicly said that I was raped. When I tried to tell people, they responded that a man can't be raped. I believed them and felt clinically insane. People may have believed that I was raped when I was a 6'4", 170-pound, skinny, bald, shy kid in high school. But when college athletics strapped 100 pounds of muscle on me in 2.5 years, when I got covered in tattoos, and when I was charged with felonies and had a severe drinking and Percocet problem as a 22-year-old, no one believed that a guy like me could be raped. I heard things like, throw her off you. You're a man, Scotty. You slept with half a Quincy. How could anyone even have to rape you? You always want to have sex because you keep doing it. My last day as a college basketball player was spent fracturing our point guard's orbital socket after punching him in practice after he called me a bitch. Mom, sorry for swearing. I was angry at so many things and I exploded with all of that built up pain. I got in my rusted out Pontiac G6, moved back to Mitchellville with the radio turned off and was sobbing so hard that I almost wrecked my car twice driving. I couldn't see literally because of the tears, and figuratively I couldn't see myself. Again, I'll never play the victim. I've learned in my mental health growth that I'm in full control of my actions. I chose to put myself in those situations. I drank to get blacked out. I was using Percocet daily for my knee pain. I was depressed and searching for something to make me feel better. I've learned how to set boundaries, how to say no, and how to validate myself and heal myself through deep, meaningful, and platonic friendships with every kind of person on the spectrum. With that said, it was so invalidating to me as a man to have experienced physical, mental, and sexual abuse. To be honest, I was a toxic man, one of the most toxic men to ever do it. I gave a TED Talk about it. I learned quick that people didn't want to feel sorry for me, and for good reason. I was hurting people because I was hurting. I was projecting everything. Because I felt so much pain, I objectified the world. I was mad at my parents for not parenting better. I was mad at administrators in college for not saving me. I was mad at my partners for not believing me when I would try to tell them that I had experienced sexual abuse. I was mad at myself for believing that I wasn't raped. The trauma that I have experienced has been so difficult to maintain. I've always responded by overworking, overserving, or overextending to cover up the pain that I felt. I felt that if I did enough things, if I shared enough stories, if I was as vulnerable as I could be, that people would finally hear me. Few did. During the last 2 years alone, I went through a failed engagement, 2 more relationships that ended. I finished a 50-credit master's in education program in a year with a 4.0. I gave a TED Talk. I started a business. I self-taught myself photography. Stop clapping. But I also wanted to kill myself 3 times. I started recovering from a Molly addiction, a sex addiction, and a self-sabotaging cycle. I was diagnosed with BPD, major anxiety, and major depression. Overworking comes at a price that almost left me in a coffin with people reading a eulogy that would have been so inaccurate because no one knew who I was. Pride in myself left me alone because no one knew me. I was in an emergency room where I sat for an hour and a half before the first thing that was said to me was, "What do you want for lunch?" I was alone. I was scared, but I left the emergency room, bought a camera, and started a multimedia production company with my boy Drew called Price of a Hug. I gave away free photos and videos for one hug. It was my way of learning how to receive physical touch without it being triggering for me. I've healed every single day since I checked out of the emergency room. I celebrate the small wins like breathing, smiling, or having someone wave at me when I walk downtown. I still mess up every single day. I'm growing. I've learned how to be as empathetic as I can, how not to project my BPD and trauma onto others, while also realizing that I'm really new to this and I slip up every single day. I no longer seek validation from others. I don't place my worth in accomplishments. I'm learning how to use my purpose and not my potential. After all, potential is what people say that I could be good at, but purpose is what fills my soul. It's my reason for waking up every single day and wanting to live. When I think about pride, I think about how much pride I have in our underrepresented minority groups. I'm so proud of everyone who has experienced trauma and still found a sense of belonging to a greater cause. I'm proud to stand on this stage, not to say, look at me, and that's why I said stop clapping, but to say, look at us. Visibility is so incredibly validating, but forgiving others is also incredibly healing. Anger is a punishment that we give ourselves for someone else's mistakes. I punish myself for being angry at my perception of other people. When I think about the catalyst in my growth, it's empathy. I can accept that I've done horrible things to people, and I can forgive myself, I can heal myself, and I can be responsible for how I treat others and myself moving forward. Emotional intelligence has saved my life. I learned emotional intelligence from humbling myself and asking people that I've hurt to explain what I did and how it made them feel. And I can then attach other people's emotions to my actions, and then I can learn to stop repeating patterns. I've really had to drop my self-pride to grow and heal. As I bring this to a close, I want to urge the audience to consider the aspect of pride. As a family, I urge us as a family to begin to see the collective picture of pride. As a family, we can learn to heal from our oppression, from our trauma, from our lack of visibility. We can heal as a family and as individuals. As this healing occurs, we can begin to love ourselves as individuals so that we can accept love from others, and so that we could love those who don't love us back. I'm pretty proud of that level of empathy, and we're all capable of possessing it. Just imagine if we all took the high road. What if when groups oppress us, if we said, I love you anyways? What if when people are projecting their own trauma on us in hurtful ways, if we said, I love myself enough to love you even though you're not being so loving right now? Love reciprocated with love fosters love. Hate reciprocated with hate fosters hate. Hate reciprocated with love fosters healthy boundaries and empathy. After all, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I think that we could, maybe switch up the game a little bit and just love people even when they don't necessarily deserve it. That's unconditional love, a love that I try to have for all people. I'm proud of each of you. I'm proud of survivors. I'm proud of the OGs that paved the way before us. Thank you for letting me grace your stage today. But most importantly, thank you for accepting and loving me. To close, you know that we got to do some spoken word poetry. It's called Matthew. God's gift, huh? Let's bury that gift in the middle. Don't fiddle around, you straight white boy. Stay in place or get replaced. I'm displaced from shape shifts that make me want to walk off a cliff and get my head split. Maybe then people can see what's inside and out of it. Laced up my Jordans and ran sprints until I blacked out. Julie and Say watched me get into an ambulance with an IV in my arm, eyes rolled up in my head, not a word out my mouth. When you grow up like me, you would do anything to get out. Dying to get off the farm. When you're as confused as me, you lose all sense of the differentiation between love and harm. My favorite side chick was named Karma. She messed with me often. My goals have stayed lofty. When you're this low, you have to dream of flying. Hit enough licks that I wanted to start living because I was dying. Lord be with me, I'm trying, I'm crying. Finally put 2 teardrops on my face so y'all could see that men cry too. One more person tells this street kid I wasn't raped, and I'll pull out the strap and let loose. I've sat in a jail, don't want a Cuban link, my neck stayed rocking the noose. Your probation had me sneaky sipping the Henny and Goose. Hindsight shows that I was slipping and grip was weakening as I was losing myself in the absolute. Not talking about vodka, keep up. Had so much pride I thought I was the only one. Been the petty queen, but Tom and the Heartbreakers showed me how to free fall. Grew up hearing people tell me that pride comes before the fall, and it does. But I also like to think that we're talking about summer, because this bummer is glowed up more than an 04 Hummer. Dubs got me sitting up high with the tinted windows, blowing endo till my lungs give out. I was out for the count, but this Mitchellville steel don't give up that easy. Shaking from the nerves, my stomach been queasy. Told y'all I was raped tonight, what a freeing feeling. Now that I believe me, I don't need no one else to even hear me, and I hope you do. Got some of my favorite people in the building, and I feel them feeling me too. Just want to sign off with an I love you. And I know deep down that y'all love me too. I'm through with it. Happy I never went through with it. Just think if that shotgun shell wasn't a dud, my last breath would have been followed with a thud, but even that Elmer Fudd dude never clapped bugs. Just a loony that finally found his tune. Picked up my Glock and put it down because I spray rounds with my mouth now. Different hit with a different body count. I don't even need to explain what I'm about. Just watch and see what it do when it do be true, and I'm doing it true and I'm doing it better. Let me sign off with a signature on this love letter. Leave nothing up for discussion or even an afterthought. Sincerely, humbly, and dearly, Scott.
All right, bear with me. I lack a lot of common sense when it comes to things like lowering a mic. I'm street smart and book smart, but no common sense. All right, so gosh, 3 days. We really lucked out with getting Scott, so thank you so much for sharing your story. It was incredible. Our next two speakers, like I just said, two speakers, is first for Capital City Pride Storytellers. We've only had one at a time, so this should be a lot of fun. The easiest way to describe this next story is it's a story on the power of love. And if you don't hear Celine Dion when I say that, then you're in the wrong place. So please join me in welcoming Nia and Katie Caramonti.
And that's how it started. 21 years ago, we went on our first date. It was junior prom. We stayed up all night, dancing, bowling, and at the end of the date, out of mutual respect for one another, we high-fived.
It's pretty cute.
It was pretty cute. That is how it started. I'm Nia.
And I'm Katie.
And this is the story of how it's going. 21 years, 5 kids, a pet dog, and a pet rat later, here we are. Now, we have a lot of story in those 21 years, so you're going to get the essence, the truest part of that story tonight. We have to go back, though, 3 years before we started dating. We went to a concert. Now, I should say, we didn't go to the concert together, but it didn't matter, because I fell in love. Yes, we were both there. We rode up together in a church van on the floor with about 4 other kids. But Katie doesn't even remember that I was there.
I might have been on a date with somebody else.
Definitely was on a date with somebody else, even though she didn't even know it.
I didn't know it. It's bad, but I didn't.
But no matter, I fell in love that night. At one point during the concert, I looked over, her 8th grade fist held high in the air, keeping time to the beat, and I knew. That was it. I saw all of her, and I wanted to be with her. Now, that wasn't the first time that I fell in love. We go back even before that. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Great, because we were great friends.
We were great friends before that. Before that, we were friends, and we became best friends over the next 3 years. We talked on the phone for hours and hours, and I would sprinkle in sound effects with my Voice FX Nickelodeon phone.
Like,
I'm glad you did my favorite sound effect. Ironically, that was my favorite sound effect.
Yeah, that's true.
And when we talked, Katie listened, and she was the only person who listened to me in my life. When we talked, I felt like me. Now, don't get me wrong. She can also talk, and I'm kind of surprised she let me go first tonight.
Because if you go first, then I can have more time later.
Yes. Very tricky. But when we did talk, I felt like me, and I didn't even know what that was, but I felt like she could see me. All I knew was that I was different. After that, there was a couple of times when she almost uncovered all of me. One time, about 3 years after we started dating, we were on my couch, and her head was on my chest, and we were watching a 2020 special about gender nonconforming men who shopped in the women's section. You could imagine in the 1990s how this segment portrayed LGBTQ people. It was not great. But during that segment, Katie turned to me and said something to me out of curiosity, not out of questioning. It was, "That's not something you'd ever be interested in, is it?" I thought my heart was going to pound out of my chest and throw her across the room. I wanted to scream out, "Yes, it is something I want to do." But I didn't know why I wanted to say that. So I said, no, of course not.
You really fooled me.
I still didn't know. She got closer to uncovering all of me, though. Fast forward 15 years, 4 of those 5 kids, the pet dog and the pet rat later, and it was my 34th birthday. You know, the one that isn't special in any way. And actually, I looked back on the calendar on that date a few days ago, and normally it says birthday, date, or date night or something. This one said, hope when you need it most. Why?
I'm not sure, but I guess we must have needed hope the most.
More than you know. Now, Katie knows my affinity for comfort. I love wrapping up in a robe by a fire with a hot cup of cocoa, out in the yard, in my pajamas, reading a book. I just love to be cozy.
Like a get a cozy.
So, as a good spouse, she knows me, and she gave me a very thoughtful gift. It was a soft, dare I say, feminine set of pajama pants. You know what my repressed self did? I told her off.
Told me right off.
I launched into a diatribe about how, well, I thought it was a nice gift. It wasn't enough. It may have been the $2 margaritas speaking, the 3 $2 margaritas speaking, but how could she not know what I meant? I mean, I didn't know what I meant. I was hoping she knew what I meant. And I'm not sure how this came off to her, because in that moment, I think I was saying, why can't you see that I'm trans? Why couldn't you just have got me a halter top and a skirt and made me a real woman? Thanks for nothing. It took me 2 more years to come out to myself. And when I did, on the drive home from work that day, I tried to convince myself that I would hedge my bets. I would come home, I would sit her down, I would say I'm trans, I would feel her out, see how she reacted. If she reacted poorly, I would say, maybe, could be, probably trans. Probably not. I don't even know why I brought it up. But I knew that wasn't fair to the girl with her fist held high in the air. And so I came home, I sat her down, and I said, I'm trans. No ifs, ands, or buts. You know what she said?
I know.
She knew. And you didn't tell me?
Not my story to tell.
No matter. I was out, now to myself. And I only was able to know who I was because Katie gave me the space to find myself. But in that moment, I felt really selfish. You see, we'd been together for a long time up to that point, and I had spent all of my energy pouring it into Katie, trying to make her happy, enmeshed in relationship, trying to push down all the chaos inside of me. And it worked. Until it didn't. So when I came out, I felt like I was taking my love away from her. It somehow felt like by focusing my love on myself, she would get less. It felt like I was taking up space, your space, by coming out.
Yeah. And Nia did not like to take up a lot of space. That's why she likes to be cozy, because it takes up very little space. But when Nia came out, she really gave me a huge gift. It was like you opened the door to your heart, and inside of it was more space for the biggest, queerest part of me that I didn't even know existed. And it was just like, come on in, let's play. Because when you showed me how to love yourself, you showed me how to love myself. When Nia came out fully, her entire self into the world, she was loving her, and she let me love me. So I will explain. I have what some people might call big energy, because they know about big energy. I take up a lot of space, like at a party, in a room, on a stage. Have you noticed how far away? Because she knows my energy is like, wah, wah, wah. I take up a lot of room, it's true. And I am all of those things that Nia said about 8th grade me. It's true. I love big and I love loud, and I'm not ashamed of it. But big energy on the outside often means big energy of equal and opposite proportions on the inside. And my big internal energy takes the form of anxiety and depression. I really have not known a time in my life when my internal landscape was not just a tangle of terrifying thoughts and hopeless feelings. It's a hard way to live on the inside. And it's something that I tried to conceal from other people and myself most of all. But there is something about Nia. oh, well, we're proud of ourselves, I guess. There is something about her. When we were kids, like she said, we were best friends, BFFs. Besties. And we formed our relationship by talking about forming this super cool band.
Called Freon.
Thank you, Dr. Quick, 7th grade science. But it would be so cool, and everybody would play these super cool instruments, guitars and drums, and I would play the shaky thing. You know this thing.
That's the technical term, the
shaky
shaky
thing. Yeah, shaky thing is the technical term for this instrument. But Nia let me go on and on in those late night conversations about this damn shaky thing. And she never made me feel stupid or small because I basically wanted to play an instrument that was a plastic egg with sand inside of it. In fact, she made me feel like cool and quirky, that I wanted to do something different. And let's be honest, I think that she liked it because it reflected my personality, because that damn thing is the life of the party. Am I right? You know, you know. I know, you can't help it. You cannot help it. It's true. But as this relationship formed through this friendship, I found that I could not only bring my quirky weirdo self, but I could also bring all these big dreams that I had, and also all of this fucked up internal energy that I was trying to hide from. She could see all of that, and she was cool with it. She knew the depths of my depression and my frenetic energy, and she was just there, steady, all the way through it. As we finally got married, she became the place where I could lay my head. Oh, thanks. That was really comfortable. And I could hold hands with my best friend as I fell asleep at night. She became my safe space. And I really could not believe that I had found this place, this person who loved me so deeply. It was incredibly freeing to be loved like that. And I used to ask her all the time, please tell me all of the reasons that you love me. You know, we have played this game. Please tell me all the reasons that you love me. And she would simply say,
no.
No. And she would say no because she explained to me that reasons, any reason that she could give, was changeable. But me, who I am, is not changeable. And that's what she loved. That's a lot of damn good love. And it felt frustrating that I couldn't love her quite that well back. She loved all of me, and I felt like there was always a little something I couldn't quite get all of her. So when Nia came out, she did give me a huge gift. It was just there, sitting on my doorstep. And when I opened the top of that box and looked inside, what I saw was myself. Because that is what good, steady, true, unconditional love does. It lets us see ourselves. I do like to say that Nia gifted me my queerness. Not because she made me queer, That's true. But she didn't. That sounded like you did, but you didn't. Not because she made me queer, but because she knew long before I did who I am. And by coming out into the world and living her truth, she invited me to come into my own. And now I know who I am.
Queer like the rest of us.
Queer like the rest of you! It's true. I know me.
And I know me.
And I know you.
And I know you.
Because that is what love does.
It gives us back to ourselves.
A ho ho ho. And a ho ho ho. Thank you.
This again. I hear that. Every time I hear that story, it just warms my heart. So thank you, Katie and Nia. So this last speaker for tonight is very special for me since it's from my partner. And it's special because I've had a month to boss him around, coach him for, to coach him for the last month. I'm just kidding. But the next story is about dealing with some of the hardships of growing up as a queer child, resilience, and pride. So please help me welcome Luke Sheeler.
It's no use going back to yesterday, because I was a different person then. This quote by Lewis Carroll is one of my personal favorites because it resonates with my own journey from youth to adulthood. Who I am today is loud, funny, extroverted, and at times mildly inappropriate. My partner Jordan would say, Luke does not know a stranger, and I think he's right. I have absolutely no problem breaking the ice. And within minutes of meeting someone, I'm already talking to them like old friends. But I wasn't always this way. My family and only a handful of friends knew me to be quite different when I was a kid. Back then, I was a little more reserved, shy, quiet. That's not to say that these are bad traits, just not what you'd expect me to be like when I was younger. Beyond being a little reserved, though, I was also highly imaginative. During my golden pre-K years, I used to spend most of my time pretending like I had magic powers of some sort. Which powers would change daily, but my favorite was pretending like I could fly. I even have the scar to prove it. Unfortunately, my magic blankie, as a cape, couldn't protect me from the corner of the coffee table. Back in those days, there was more of a separation between girls' toys and boys' toys, but lucky for me, my family didn't care about things like that too much. My sister Lindsay had these pink and purple My Little Ponies. She had no interest in them. So while she was out scraping her knees or terrorizing the neighborhood kids, I would go get those My Little Ponies and braid their manes. Troll dolls were also really good for this, and they had that magic little jewel for a belly button. On my third birthday, my aunt bought me this Little Mermaid Ariel Barbie doll. And let me tell you, Ariel was the best bath time friend. She could swim with me in the tub, or you could take off her little metallic fins and she could walk around on those, what's that word again? Feet. Eventually, it was time to leave behind my world of ponies and trolls and even Ariel and head off to kindergarten. Aside from a few kids in the neighborhood, I hadn't really been around a whole lot of kids my age. Most of my socialization came from my 3 older siblings. But I was excited for the opportunity to meet new friends, and I ended up hitting it off with this Dennis the Menace-looking boy in my class named Sam. Sam might not have shared the same interest in toys as me, but he definitely shared the same sense of imagination. He even had some great games of his own, too. Like, every day after school, we would pretend like we were the X-Men or characters from Mortal Kombat. Naturally, I was always Storm or Sonya Blade. Sam and I were literally inseparable, but our friendship got cut short summer after first grade when his family moved to Grundy Center, Iowa. In second grade, I learned that even though Sam and I had a lot in common, I was not like the other boys in my class at all. The girls, on the other hand, the girls I could get along with. They were pretty, they were nice, we liked all the same things, and let's face it, they were a whole lot smarter than the boys. It wasn't long at all before I was out at recess playing hopscotch and jump rope with my new best girlfriends. Or Boys Chase Girls, which was really just me chasing all the girls around the playground. Unfortunately, the boys in my class took notice that I only played with girls, and this put a target on my back. Different wasn't celebrated back then, and I soon became the brunt of their jokes. My sister Lindsay and I used to walk home from school together, and there were always these two boys who would follow us on their bikes and relentlessly make fun of me. But where I was quiet, Lindsay was not. Let me preface this by saying I don't support violence, but it was pretty great watching my big sister go right up to one of these kids, knock him off his bike, and slap him across the face. Lindsay went to middle school that next year, so it was just me and my peers from then on. Third grade was a lot like second, fourth like third, and fifth like fourth. More of the same from the same boys. It wasn't all bad, though. I mean, I was still friends with the girls, and I found new things to love, like music and art. All of that changed, though, when it was my time to go to middle school. I wasn't in a class of just 40 kids anymore, but 400. We probably weren't even halfway through the fall semester, and it felt like word about me had spread like wildfire. All of these boys that I hardly even knew looked at me sideways, as boys my age always had. Even some of the girls did too now. When I'd walk through the hallways, I would see kids whisper to one another, look at me, and laugh. In elementary school, I could shake this off, but now I just felt different. Suddenly, I wasn't so happy-go-lucky anymore. On top of being quiet and shy, I was also becoming anxious and uncertain. Amidst all of this, I was also at that age where hormones started kicking in, so I knew immediately just how different I really was. There wasn't a whole lot of representation or outward support for gay people back then, so coming upon this realization at such a young age was a difficult pill to swallow. In a messed up way, I assumed that my whole class knew, and that's why they all hated me. I hated myself because of it. I even started to think that I deserved the treatment that I was getting. And then, kids started to call me faggot. Preteen boys tend to travel in packs. So, while I would be standing by myself after school, they looked at it as an opportunity to attack. They would surround me and either ask me if I was gay, or they would call me gay. Or worst of all, they would put their arms around me and they'd pretend to hit on me for their own amusement. I tried to block it out by keeping my head down. But I can distinctly remember the feeling of what it's like to scream on the inside. In my experience, outcasts tend to stick together. We find each other. And I wasn't completely alone during that period of my life. There were other geeks and nerds and weirdos that befriended me. We were the others. And in looking back on our little group, we were awesome. We talked about ideas and books and movies and the possibility of magic in this world. And you already know how much I love magic. These were the people that I was in band with, in choir, in theater. When things were at their darkest, these were the kids that let in the light, just by being themselves and allowing me to do the same. In 8th grade, I decided to come out to someone for the first time. Ashley Heyer. Ashley and I had been in all of the same activities together, but it wasn't until that year that we truly connected. She was smart in ways that I'd never seen in a person before. She felt safe. Summer of 8th grade, Ashley and I joined our classmates on a trip to Millikan University for Show Choir Camps of America. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Not because I got to dance and sing for a week straight, which was great, but because I'd never seen so many openly gay people in my life. It was incredible. They were all so cool and so confident, and they fit in while still being themselves. So with Ashley's help, I came out to a few of these new friends. And for the first time in my life, I felt normal. I felt like things were going to be okay. That feeling ended when it was time to go home. The idea of returning to the same old lie that I'd been living weighed heavy in my heart on the bus ride back. I wanted to keep being the same kid that I was at camp. When I got back home, this conflict consumed me, and I felt like it was fight or flight. So, at 14 years old, I decided to come out to my family. I'll be honest, it wasn't easy. I cried so hard that night. But the best takeaway was that my family still loved me, and I had their support. I decided to hold off on coming out to the rest of my peers in 9th grade, but knowing that my family had my back changed everything. My anxiety seemed to disappear overnight. That year, I walked through the halls with my head held high. I was doing well in class, and I continued to pursue the things that I love. By 10th grade, I could hardly recognize myself in the mirror anymore. I was mentally, physically, and emotionally a different person. So much so that even the upperclassmen took notice, and I became well-liked throughout my entire high school. I cultivated a multitude of friendships with all kinds of different people. I mean, it was incredible. And that year, I felt ready. So I came out to everyone. And little by little, friend by friend, by the end of 10th grade, I was out to everyone. My last 2 years of high school were about as good of an experience as I could have asked for. I had finally become the person that I'd always wanted to be. I was living life authentically, and people liked me for me. All my new friends that I made all around the high school, I was friends with musicians, artists, jocks, academics, goths, cheerleaders, you name it. But my personal favorite will still always be the weird and eccentric, because they're the people who taught me that being different is okay. In hindsight, it wasn't my entire class that had it out for me in middle school. When we're young, it's hard to understand that the actions of some don't necessarily dictate the opinions of many. When it's the popular kids who are our bullies, we think they're the ones who set the rules, but they're not. Each of us gets to set our own rules in our own lives, and each of us has the power to change the path we're on. There's inner strength within us all, even if it doesn't always feel that way. I tapped into mine when I came out at 14 years old, and it's a fire that I've kept burning ever since. There's a lot of hate in this world, but there's also power in standing up and saying, I am. And who I am today is proud.
Wow. Big round of applause for Jordan, Giovanni, Scott, Katie, Nia, Luke. I've done this before, and actually we did run-throughs last night, and there were some moments, and when I did it for the register, literally the night before, I got up to practice, and I was like, I don't know my speech. Frightening. And so what I realized is I like attention, as I told you earlier. But when you talk on the level that we're talking here and sharing the experiences that are so personal to us, that level of vulnerability is really tough. And so can we please give them a huge round of applause for sharing their lives with us. It's not easy. Public speaking is hard. I tell this to my kids at Girls Rock Des Moines. That's another organization I work with. Sharing personal stories about yourself in such a public forum, whole other level. But I have to give a shout out to Teehees, to Sid and Pete for giving us this space for the last 6 months for free. They're amazing. I always tell people allies are so overrated at this point. To me, allies is a very passive way to say, I support you, but I don't do anything about it. They're accomplices. They put their money where their mouth is at. So again, thanks to Sid and Pete and Teehees. Thank you to EMC, to Athene. Again, we cannot do what we're doing right now without their support. It's important. And for those who have never been here, the open mic night that happens at Teehees every Thursday night is freaking amazing. So it's happening right after. I'm going to go ahead and say those are probably open mic night people. But feel free to stay. It's an amazing space that is safe that they have created here for people of all walks of life. And we are on day 24. Thank Baby J. Woo! I've had 2 days off and I worked those nights. I just happened to not do the pride thing. So am I ready for it to be over? Yes. Am I sad though? Yes. Because I look at this full room, even though I'm blinded by the lights right now, and all I see is an overwhelming amount of love, community, and support. Des Moines, you're doing some fantastic things, and you should be proud of yourselves for showing up and showing out. So I'm going to do a quick run through, because we do have 6 more days. Like I said, praise Baby J. Because there's a lot going on. So tomorrow night we have the Ride-In Movie Night. We're actually moving inside the Science Center. It was supposed to be on the lawn, but we finally have rain in Iowa, which we need. So that starts technically at 5:30 if you want to go into the Science Center. However, the movie will start around 8:39. Saturday we have our pet parade. We are going to actually accept walk-ins, which makes us all want to puke in our mouth because we've done it before. It's a little bit overbearing, but it's crazy. It's amazing. We take everything from potbelly pigs in the past to iguanas to dogs and guinea pigs and cats. So if you have a rat, which I hear they do over there, Katie and Nia, your rat is welcome to strut its stuff in the Pride Parade of 2021 for pets. And that will be at Principal Park, 8:30 doors, 9:30. We'll be rocking it out with DJ Viv. Sorry, normally I don't use paper, but there's so much, and my brain is so mushy at this point, I don't even know my name. Sunday, we have the Reverse Car Parade. That's going to be at Waterworks Park. So literally, we're going to have about 50 different parade participants, but they're going to be on the side of the road because #COVID. You'll drive through it. It's going to be great. We're going to give prizes to the top 3 cars that deck it out the most, and then it's going to be with a concert. So once you go through, from 3 to 5 is the parade, 3 to 7 is the concert. We have music and entertainment for 4 straight hours. It's going to be awesome, and it's free. You can go out there. We're going to have food trucks, get a party pod, you park your car, and you get to enjoy a wonderful, beautiful afternoon in Des Moines in one of the biggest parks in the country. Monday is our Mindful Monday. We do a 7:30 art talk, and then at 8 o'clock we do sculpture, or we don't do sculpture, we do yoga in the sculpture park. But maybe you do a sculpture pose. I don't know. I'm not a yogi. Woo! Okay. Tuesday is our virtual cooking class. It's amazing, so tune in at 6:30. Check our website for the ingredients. And the last day of Pride is a little bit gluttonous for me because it's Drag King DSM, which is actually the largest drag king show in the entire country, will be happening down at Woolies. There's still tickets available if you want to come out and support. We have performers in from Alabama, Oklahoma, Minneapolis, Illinois, and then all over Iowa, and then local folks. It's amazing. So please come out and support. We hope to see you in the next 7 days. Again, EMC, Athene, Teehees, we are so appreciative and grateful. Thank you, Des Moines, for being one of the best cities in the country. Have a good night.